A deacon in the Catholic Church was arrested today on child molestation charges stemming from 2 decades ago.
This is the second clergy member under Amen's leadership to be arrested in connection to claims of child molestation since the fall. Mike McDaniel has that story.
Once a prominent attorney and deacon in the Catholic Church, Virgil Wheeler III surrendered to Jefferson Parish authorities Monday, charged with sexual battery and indecent behavior with a juvenile. The alleged abuse happened in 2000 and 2001, when the victim was 10 or 11 years old.
I think it's a step in the right direction that his victim or victims will receive justice.
Kevin Bourgeois is an abuse survivor. He now works as an independent contractor with the Archdiocese, providing guidance and sensitivity training. He questions whether reports of alleged clergy abuse the last couple of years help play a role in the victim coming forward.
The fact that he is a deacon in the Catholic Church maybe gave this guy the courage to step forward and get help.
Ordained in 2018, well after the alleged abuse, Wheeler spent his ministry at St. Francis Xavier Catholic Church in Metairie. He was suspended back in August after allegations of abuse made their way to the Archdiocese. In a statement to Eyewitness News, Wheeler's attorney, David Corsell, says Mr. Wheeler maintains his innocence.
Legally, just surrendering yourself actually says nothing.
WWL legal analyst Kiva Landrum says when it comes to guilt or innocence, surrendering doesn't place one over the other.
We have to remember that someone is innocent until or unless the prosecution or the state proves them guilty.
Wheeler is the second clergyman under Archbishop Gregory Amen's command to be arrested in connection with claims of child molestation since October. Patrick Watney was a priest at St. Luke the Evangelist Catholic Church in Slidell. He was arrested after his alleged confession to molesting a teen boy several times beginning in 2013. Bourgeois hopes Wheeler's case is a sign of trust from the Archdiocese.
I take faith in that he was removed from ministry. The Archbishop turned over the information to law enforcement for them to do their job, which is what we hope that he will continue to do, and I have every belief that he will.
Mike McDaniel, Eyewitness News.
Wheeler turned himself over to deputies earlier today. His bail was not immediately set. He has now been added to the Archdiocese roster of priests and deacons credibly accused of sexually molesting children.